Hi, welcome back to Collecting Rush. And of course, I'm Rush. Today we're going to be taking a look at part 2 of my collection tour video. And have my clothes are any indication, you can guess what we're going to be taking a look at today. So with the intros out of the way last video, let's rush into it. Whereas the first video we looked at the shelves that made up the X-Men display, this video will be taking a closer look into the section of the display that belongs to the Avengers. The 5 shelves that make up this portion of the display will be covering the themes of the main Avengers, Iron Man, the other teams such as Young Avengers and West Coast Avengers, the Mighty Thor, and finally, the Incredible Hulk. So let's start off with shelf number 1, the Avengers. Looking at the main Avengers display, it goes without saying how much attention the MCU movies have brought to the team. But in regards to the MCU, I have to discuss the lack of it in my collection. As I stated in part 1, I've been collecting comics since the 90s. I grew up reading thousands of comics and therefore have a very extensive knowledge of almost all of the characters. My passion lies in the comics versions of them, and that's why I only have those on display. You may see a few MCU figures on a shelf, but that's only because we have not been given the comics version, and the MCU version is close enough. Although the Avengers roster has included what some may consider almost every popular character Marvel has, the figures you see displayed are the ones that I associate with the team the most. The background for this display was one of the most difficult ones I had to choose. I always try to find a background that best fits the team, and I finally chose this one that was used in the Avengers game. Although a few of these displays will probably change within this year, but more on that later. Taking a look at shelf number 2, Iron Man and his Hall of Armors. My Iron Man display is one of the shelves that catches a lot of attention, with many collectors asking where I got the Hall of Armor from. That accessory set is the Disney Marvel Toy Box Hall of Armor playset that was sold on Shop Disney as well as the physical Disney stores. Sadly, this was sold many years ago and no longer available, unless you find it for sale in the secondary market. The lighting you see between the armors is not actual lights, but reflective tape, which I found to be a budget-friendly way of producing the same effect without bleaching out the figures themselves. My current Hall of Armor display has the capacity to hold 24 regular-sized armors, to which 22 of those current slots are filled. Hasbro just announced the upcoming release of the Superior Armor, so that would leave one available spot. Luckily, 4 of the current slots are filled with Game Reverse armors, or the Iron Patriot armor only worn by Norman Osborn, so I have some wiggle room when we eventually get some more comic-accurate armors released. Although the majority of my Marvel collection is from Hasbro's Legends line, I do mix in other lines as well, such as the Diamond Select Hulkbuster you see. Using the Hall of Armor setting as a display technique provided me with the opportunity to take advantage of the numerous Iron Man comic figures Hasbro has given us. As I stated previously, my goal is to try and have only one version of each character on display. But since these can be displayed as hollow armor units, having multiple versions in one display doesn't break that rule. Shelf number 3, other Avengers teams such as Young Avengers and West Coast Avengers. With every great team, it would be inevitable that a company would want to take advantage of their popularity and expand the team into spin-off titles. The Avenger comics have done that over its 60-year run numerous times, including such team titles as the West Coast Avengers, the Mighty Avengers, the Secret Avengers, the Avengers Unity Squad, the Young Avengers, and countless more. So it only made sense to also expand the display onto another shelf incorporating the other teams meeting in a War Room style display. Again, with backgrounds offered from the Comics Facebook group. Another easy kit bash you will see in this display is of the character Demolition Man, or D-Man for short. This custom was accomplished using the retro packaged brown suit Wolverine's head and placing on the body of Walgreens' exclusive first appearance Daredevil's body. As always, I try to remain budget friendly when it comes to my displays. To that accord, the Avengers table that is frequently seen in the comics is made from a design I printed and folded up using just basic cardstock paper. Shelf number 4, Thor. When it comes to the multiple looks Thor has had over the years in the comics, the modern redesign of his classic look is still my favorite, but I hope Hasbro gives us another figure of it with a modern articulation. My original Thor display was on a smaller shelf, but after the release of the MCU 12-inch Surtur figure, a larger display was warranted. And even though it is an MCU version of the character, it still represents the character enough to stand in a comics display. And honestly just looks amazing. I passed on the recent Legends version of the Destroyer only because I already owned the Selects version, also because I did not need the Masterson version of Thor since I owned Thunderstrike. Once again, I have to give credit to the Camix Facebook group for the amazing background design they offered. It perfectly conveys the look of Asgard, only enhanced more by my use of gold holographic poster board that stands in for the Rainbow Bridge from the comics. I will provide a link below to the group's Facebook page. And finally, shelf number 5, The Incredible Hulk. In the planning out of my displays, the need to dedicate a full shelf to Hulk can mainly be attributed to the sheer size of each figure. I only have 15 figures on this current shelf, but they take up the space that could accommodate twice that number. And yes, that is the MCU Korg figure you see. I have plans to eventually paint him so that he better resembles his comic counterpart that was part of Hulk's Warbound group that came back to Earth with him at the end of the Planet Hulk story. While I do own the Marvel Legends versions of both Abomination and Rhino, the Marvel Select versions just give a larger, more intimidating presence I feel works better for this display, just as the case for the Toy Biz Face-Off version of the Leader. I spoke earlier in the video that a few of the Avengers displays may be changing soon. That decision is due to the release later this year of the HasLab Giant Man. To create the space needed, some of the displays will shift from this location up to remaining open space on top of the bookcases. My plan is to make a similar cityscape diorama as seen in the Hasbro's promotional images that can then be expanded to cover the 3 bookcases. This would in turn create 2 open shelves for future themed releases. So that brings us to the end of part 2 of my collection tour video dealing with my Marvel display. But don't worry, I still have at least 4 more themed videos to go. Those themes will be dealing with the non-team side of the Marvel Universe, the Marvel villains, Spider-Man, and finally the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, which will include the Fantastic Four. Which of those themes would you like to see next? Leave a comment below. Let me know. But until then, you can check out my Instagram page, collecting_rush, to see photos of my whole display. But until then, I'm Rush.